Hello, Krishnan College. Welcome to episode 8. And today we have a extremely special guest. One of my best friends dating all the way back to Penfield Middle School through North Penn High School. We have Brandon O today. Now, Brandon has been an impactful person in a variety of communities. He has done research in the scientific field, but he's also been deeply involved with the Korean American community and has really done a lot of work in the interfaith space as well. So, Brandon, I'm honored to have you on. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much, Akshay. Akshay actually reached out to me a couple weeks ago, and we had a hard time finding a schedule, but it's amazing that we got this down. This is my first empty Saturday in a long time, so I'm very glad that we were able to have this meeting to talk about this. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. And Brandon keeps himself very busy, as we will see throughout the duration of this podcast. So it's going to be an awesome episode. So let me start with a challenge for you, Brandon. Uh,
Yes.
just just describe yourself openly. What is Brandon O? Go.
I would say I'm someone who definitely doesn't like rules. So I'm someone who likes to challenge rules and think of things that perhaps other people don't think of. I like to take on challenges. I'm definitely a risk taker too. We can talk about it later on, but I tend to be very good at like creating new things and especially getting other people excited for my goals and my dreams. So like basically the idea of like if I have an idea that I think can work, and I'll spend a lot of time working on that. But like as most projects go, you can only do so much as a one-man team. And one thing that I've really like found out more about myself through college, which I do strongly believe that college is a great way to learn more about your strengths and your weaknesses. But one strength that I did find was how I was able to get so much support from other people and get other people excited for the ideas that I was excited for. And it's really been amazing to see like how people have been so willing to help me and my team, to join my team, to even just be a member of a lot of the initiatives that I've started, and just being able to see like how, in a sense, like being able to create like movements in different spaces, um, regardless of whether they are like Asian or non-Asian or Christian or non-Christian, just people so excited to just help out, and it's been great to see that. So definitely, not a rule follower. I like to like start new tradition, new culture, and also I do think that in terms of like ideas too, like going back to like the risk taker thing, there's no point in like being a risk taker if it's like an idea that's never gonna like come alive, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
one thing that I've also really been pleasantly like surprised to find out about myself was that the ideas, although some are like very left field, but the ones that do seem right, the ones that do seem to have a lot of potential, I've been able to find a lot of success in regards to people being engaged, but also just being able to create like real changes like at Hopkins too. So it's been great to like see that.
That was a very unique and interesting description, so I can't wait to get into this conversation. So, I guess let's take a step back and go to your time in high school. So you were a national merit finalist. Like you won the Korean Golden Belt competition, and you were actively involved in many diverse communities. So, did you think that that kind of helped you fuel that fire of taking risks and trying new initiatives? And I guess how did those experiences help you as you progress towards college?
I think college is very different from high school. At least from my experience in high school,
Got
it's
it.
it's a very different student body and very different, I guess, like wealth of experiences that you can actually choose from. So the initiatives or even the clubs or whatever you want to do in high school, in my opinion at least, is very limited compared to the college space. In
Hmm.
college you have more of like, there's more of a startup culture in that you can create new initiatives, you can create new clubs, and the benefit with this is with college, the reason why college is, in my opinion, the greatest place to like build relationships with other people is because you're technically with them 24/7. So the site that you're on, like the workplace is literally your campus. So Johns Hopkins right now is my workplace, and technically yes, I get like days off, but for me to like connect with a team member or connect with a friend is as simple as a simple text. Whereas in high school, you would have to like initiate like, do I drive to their house? Do they drive to somewhere else? Like there's
Mhm.
much more details involved in high school, but at least for Hopkins, it's been very smooth with like finding people and finding people to like do clubs with. Um,
Mhm.
I will say though that North Penn was good in that it does set the foundation as like most high
Yeah.
schools do. I think that North Penn was good in that it allowed me to try experiences that I probably would not have tried here. In that, for example, like playing trumpet. I don't really play my trumpet in college because I don't have the time now, but I do think that my musical experience in high school is an experience that I look at very fondly, and I really enjoyed my time doing that because I recognize now, like with the trajectory that my life is going, it's probably going to be hard to pick up playing an instrument again. Um, and of course, North Penn also, it was more, how do I say it? It was more of a balanced of a student body. For context, Hopkins after DEI was abolished, we have a really high Asian like student body. So like I don't know what the exact number is, but it's like one of the highest, which means
Mhm.
that in terms of diversity at least, and in terms of like Hopkins being regarded as a world class institution, there's definitely a more of a limit on how diverse the student body is compared to someone like North Penn. And I do also remember fondly like how in North Penn I was able to interact with other people from different cultures, from different races, from even different upbringings, much more than Hopkins.
Yeah.
Hopkins has a strong international student body, which means that, for example, they're probably entering with a lot more wealth than perhaps people in North Penn, and even just like the club selection too. It's like people place different emphasis on different things. There's more of an emphasis on pre med culture, on like
Mhm.
business startups, and not Greek life. Hopkins is not good in Greek life, but other things too. So it's a very different focus, but I do I do think North Penn was good in laying the foundation, but as most college students probably feel, it's only the foundation. You could argue that, oh, without the foundation, it's not that important. But I will assert that college was such a like great building block for me at least. And if
Mhm.
someone didn't have a foundation in high school, I can easily see how college could be the start of a foundation for something else, something
Mhm.
greater. And I guess what that is, if someone's like struggling in high school, just know that like that's like, in my opinion, less than 1% of in importance. I really do think you can turn your entire life around with college. Just embrace the opportunity, just make the most of the experience, and just not taking every day for granted, and just living out life in a way that is meaningful, purposeful, and impactful. Like these are all ways that you can really make college your foundation. But at least for me, high school, even though it may not be as impactful as Johns Hopkins, I did find it to at least lay the foundation for me. And through that, I was able to branch out into other things.
Yeah, and I think that that is a great message. It's like once you go to a new environment, it's like you can kind of reinvent yourself and like find your passions and find your community. And I think that you've really been able to do that well at Johns Hopkins. Like so I guess like when you came on to the campus, was that feeling shocking? Did it feel like empowering? And I guess once you felt that feeling, how did you act on it?
I think my feeling when I first entered into Hopkins was much more of like, I need to get things done. I knew that heading into Hopkins at least. I knew I was like, if the term is I think like starting behind the eight ball. I recognized that compared to the other like students at Hopkins, my resume was not as accomplished. I wasn't entering in with publications. I wasn't entering in with any clinical experience. So I knew that I wanted to try really hard. So during the summer, like I really applied to a lot of research positions and I got in even before I stepped foot into school. And basically that's what basically consumed my entire life my first year. And I would spend like so much time like working in the lab, but I think looking back at that time period now, I do think there's a difference between like there's an importance in balancing the school life, but also like the other parts of life that makes college meaningful. And I will say though that the feelings of not inferiority, but rather like an urgency to do certain things as a freshman was definitely something that guided a lot of my actions heading into freshman year and throughout freshman year. And if there was one thing that I would change as a freshman, I would definitely make sure to stop pressing on the accelerator for so long, but rather sometimes if you're always moving at 80 miles per hour and if your life is always that fast, you tend to miss the beautiful things that can happen that you can only see when you're only driving 25 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And even better if you're walking. There's certain things that you tend to miss. And I do think that in freshman year, because my focus was so much on academics and my career, I did tend to miss certain things that I think could have benefited more. For example, more deeper friendships, better club activity. I was engaged in a couple clubs, but nowhere near the amount that I was engaged in sophomore year. And looking back at it now, I would definitely change. Of course, you can't really change the feeling, but I do
Mhm.
think the mind shift, I would have liked a mind shift at that time. Yeah.
Right. Mm. Yeah, so I guess what strategies did you employ to fix that? Like, or quote unquote, like fix that in your sophomore year? What did you do to effectively engage that mind shift?
And with that, um, I strongly believe that radical change, or let's say radical actions, will lead to radical change. So
Mm,
I realized how much academically focused my freshman year was right before freshman summer. So the way I changed, in a sense, that feeling or that mind perspective was by basically dedicating my freshman year summer, the summer after my freshman year, completely not to academics, but more of service. So what I
mhm,
mean by that is, for example, I went 1 week to Honduras and I did basically medical missions where we just went to rural villages and we just offered free medical care. We talked to them. We gave assistant. We in a sense did have dialogue with. For example, I can't speak Spanish, so that was also a very humbling experience. But being able to talk with someone who didn't have the established medical care systems or didn't have even clean water. The way that the water was not really up to standard and the bathroom is just a hole in the floor. These are things that radically change the way you perceive the world and the way you perceive other people, including your own life, right? That was one thing that I did early June. But then for the rest of the summer, basically, I was then part of another experience called Bridge, where we went to first Washington D.C., not the actual monuments and architecture places, but rather more of the the less wealthy neighborhoods where poverty is very real, where you see the houseless population just on the streets begging for money. And for me, that was a pretty big eye-opening experience because once again, it's that living in a place like that where money is not guaranteed, where your next meal is not guaranteed, is definitely, in my opinion, life changing. I do think that regardless of where you are or what field of study you plan to go into, just having even a small experience like that, where you're just engaging with people who are not as privileged as you are and being able to help those who are in need, is something that definitely makes you think questions about your own life. And for me, especially since Hopkins, there's this saying that Hopkins is in a bubble of its own outside of Baltimore. So Hopkins, the area is very safe, but if you step even a couple miles south, north, east, or west, it tends to get very, very like dangerous and sketchy after you step out of that bubble. And for me, I never stepped out of that bubble. For me, I would always stay in the bubble. And of course I would go to the hospital to do research, but then that's another bubble in its own. So those are the only two places I really operated in freshman year. Um, but then especially over the summer, by doing bridge and by going to Honduras and just by realizing, oh, the world is not just limited to this bubble, but the world contains so many other things, so many needs, and so many people that are in need of help, whether that be even medical support or even just having a conversation with someone. It's something that is truly eye opening, and for me at least, being able to dedicate my summer, because if you think about it, at least for bridge, and Honduras. You could argue that Honduras is a medical like activity, but I had multiple offers to go to like different labs, including UPenn, where I was very excited to do research. But ultimately, I did decline because I recognized that what happened during freshman year was something that I hoped not to repeat in my sophomore year. So
Mm.
then, by doing going to Honduras, by going to Bridge, even though they're not really, you could argue, even though they're not really helpful to my application, for me at least, it was very transformative. And at the very least, it helped completely change my perspective on how to live my school life as a sophomore last year. And to me at least, those like two experiences were very life changing and really helped me to open my eyes to the broader, I guess, Baltimore community instead of just the Hopkins bubble.
For sure. And it seems like all the decisions that you make are very intentional. You have a reason behind everything. And I think that that is very important for success in college rather than just shooting darts at the target, actually seeing what your life needs and seeing what will truly fulfill you. So I think that that is really inspiring and something that I'm also going to take away from this interview. So, going back to that intentionality, how are you able to find these opportunities? Is it mostly word of mouth? Is it a lot of research on Google? How do you optimize your search and how do you access all these amazing opportunities?
Um, Definitely word of mouth. My friends who like went to Bridge before or went to Honduras before.
Mhm.
But if we talk about like more of like the club stuff that I did last year, I would say basically all of them, even like the I guess you could the Bible study that I lead, we had one member going into this sophomore year, one confirmed member, and then we ultimately grew to like 120 plus. I think we had close to over 200 step into our like club at a certain point, but ultimately we would have like 120 plus coming consistently to some extent.
That's
And
the
that was
mustard seed project, right? The like, yeah, like that's the mustard seed project, right? Or
no, it's basically the same. Like we would basically so mustard seed project was also 120, but that's different because 120 in that people were willing to. I guess since we're on it now, let's talk about the mustard seed project. So
okay, that's good.
that's probably my biggest time commitment in sophomore year. And for me, faith is a really important thing to me, and I truly do believe in open dialogue of faith. I'm I'm someone who's like very against like, for example, the Christian preacher like screaming in a microphone and yelling people that they're going to hell. I don't think that's the way to talk about spiritual or like higher powers. And for me, I have a lot of Muslim friends, Buddhist friends, agnostic friends, and I really love talking about philosophical ideas with them, talking about what is the true purpose of life, what is the meaning of life. Um, even we don't even have to talk about whether or not there is a God, but at least for me and from other people that I've talked to, just by like asking these deep questions to yourself, like why am I actually living? Why do I want to live? Why do I wake up in the morning to do something? Has really, in a sense, like I know it's changed my life, but it's also changed a lot of other people's lives. And so Mustard Seed Project is basically the idea of that is we would literally so around 120 plus people have participated to some extent. And with that, we would literally just join together and go out on campus and cold approach strangers and start talking about like deep questions. Like, for example, one of our like opening questions is like, if you were to die today, would you be satisfied with your life? And regardless of if someone is not Christian or is Christian or agnostic or is something else or is atheist, we find that regardless of where they're from, we have such a great like feedback from people who do want these questions. I think that a lot of college students deep down, they have sort of like a greater desire to live, especially at Hopkins. Hopkins has like a mental health sort of like you could argue like crisis where a lot of people are stressed, a lot of people are anxious, and this is a trend that a lot of people see, not in just Hopkins but also other
Yeah.
colleges. So the truth is that many people go through mental health struggles. Many people struggle with why am I actually here, and a lot of people the reason why they want to become an engineer or a doctor or a politician, sometimes or most of the time, is not actually because they want it. It's perhaps it's because of the world wants, or it's because of the monetary motivation, or it's because of the parent pressure. Um, so basically, the point of MSP or Mustard Seed Project is to really like dig into the you could argue the shell. A lot of when people present themselves to other people, especially in a professional setting or in an academic setting, people tend to present a version of themselves that, in a sense, brings out the best part of themselves while hiding certain other things that they don't want to talk about. For me, as someone who really believes in um, interactional dialogue, and dialogue that basically builds each other up, I really do think that the presence of dialogue is super important in regards to like, why are you actually here? Why do you want to be here? And what is your motivation for living? And for a lot of the people that we talk to, many people have requested to meet up with one of, so our team, we have people who basically continue meeting up with people to just continue asking these questions, continue asking, and in a sense, like mental support and mental guidance. Asking if we can pray for them, asking them if they would like anything. One of the things that we did was we did a hot chocolate stand where basically a lot of our members pitched in to donate to MSP, where we handed out over 300 cups of hot chocolate during final season. And the way people were just saying, it was like the best, like it made their day, it made their finals big. For something just as simple as a hot chocolate is something that is amazing. And of course, it's very bold. I think a lot of people are scared to just cold approach a stranger and talk to them about deep things that perhaps you don't even talk about with your friends. But
Hmm.
to me, I do really do believe that talking about these deep things, these deep questions, are really important, not even just for deep friendships, but also like if I'm a stranger and I'm talking to a stranger about this too, I you would be shocked to see how many people are so willing to be open and vulnerable. And the way we've been able to carry the stories, each person is a walking story of the ways that they've been able to live in a way that's, in a sense, miraculous. Like people come into college with their own stories, their struggles, but also their successes. And oftentimes we tend to meet people not in their successes, but in their struggles. And the way that people feel so seen and heard through our discussions has really been really cool to see. If you want a number standpoint, we tend to keep track of people or how much people we've like reached out. We've probably reached out to over 2,000 people. We
Wow.
go out to over we have like in our like busiest season, we had like four like commission times, going out times. One is always on Saturdays where we just go south, so outside of the Hopkins bubble, to South Baltimore, where there's a Catholic church system where like you have like 300 like houseless people just go to get free food, free clothes, and we just send like eight or nine people to always go there every Saturday. So that's like the lock. And then throughout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have like two or three sessions where we just go out and take a break from all of our academics and just have this important dialogue, these important conversations. And for me, at least, I found that to be very helpful. Not only because it can be nervous at times, just going up to strangers and talking about this, but it's also so different from the academic pressure. This is more of like a social pressure kind of thing. But ultimately, you see that the reward of just having these deep conversations, which most people probably never have these deep conversations. Even
Hmm.
I do strongly believe that, at least not in my experience, but when I talk to other people, their friendships with their friends tend to be very shallow. I guess kind of like an MCAT comparison because I'm studying for MCAT, but like friendships in college, although some can be very deep, they tend to be a mile wide and an inch deep. Meaning, yes, it can cover up a lot of space. Yes, it like it's you tend to work, you complement the person well, but have you really talked about perhaps like the deep things, like what you're currently going through, what you really hope to see next year? Like these deep questions that I strongly believe are integral parts to having a deep friendship. And for us, we're basically giving strangers the opportunity to have these conversations. And my argument would then be that because people are so willing to have these conversations, it probably means they don't have an outlet to do that in their current lives, which I have very been able to see a lot this year. And people always express how they're very grateful that we're just going out and doing this because for a lot of people who are very stressed, who are very overwhelmed, even a simple conversation that basically makes them feel heard or seen or recognized, really, you'll be shocked at how many miracles that can, how many like how a wonder it can do to someone. And it can make their whole day, or for some people, it has made their whole week too. So it's been amazing to be a part of that.
Right, and I can clearly like hear the passion in your voice for this like initiative, and you've also been involved in it, yeah, like in the CHAI, Chai, like, and you've also been able to lead that organization too. And I think that it's really interesting that you're using this like interfaith and cross-cultural approach to like really bring people together and just recognize like that we're all humans behind all the things that are different about us, which I think is really cool. And I hypothesize that like this will really help you as well, like as you go forward on your pre-med journey, right? Because I think one thing that is sometimes missing from medicine is that human element and like human touch. Like I mean, like you were a great researcher, like you were part of a cardiology lab and like yeah, and then you move to a cell biology lab. So you're clearly technically qualified. Like, but I think that's something that can like really set you apart is that like social part and not even just set you apart, but like just help you appreciate life more and like live a fuller life. So like, so I guess like do you have like do you have thoughts on that or like the current approach that a lot of students take to medicine?
Yeah. So funnily enough, I wasn't planning on going into medicine my freshman year. I wanted to do
Mhm.
research academia full
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I
then
remember that. Yep.
but then I worked in the lab for like 7 hours a day for like 5 days a week, and I realized, okay, this life is not one for me. I think I need
Wait. Time out, time out, time out. Like you're doing 7 hours a day for 5 days a week during classes?
so like I would skip certain classes because I was so into my work.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
probably not 5 days a week, but definitely like 7 hours, maybe like 3 or 4 days. So like close to like 25
Yeah.
hours, 28 hours a week, like at least.
Yeah, like there were a few weeks from my experience, my like I guess this was like my sophomore fall, like preparing to present at a conference and like getting a manuscript ready. Just a PSA to people out there, I like personally would not recommend doing that. Brandon, do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
yeah, I also would not recommend doing that
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
That's why the radical summer had to
Yeah,
happen
like
afterwards. But yeah.
but you did that for a whole semester?
Yeah, no, basically both semesters. Like I
Wow.
was basically
Like
working like a
that's
horse.
like
um
like I mean there were like weeks that I did that, but like the whole semester is wow, that's something else. But like yeah, like but sorry to interrupt, continue.
no, you're good, you're good. So yes, I wanted to be a researcher. And then actually after the summer, there was a time where I was like, I felt that, especially with Honduras and Bridge, like really changing the way I perceive things. There was a time where I was like, I need to go to seminary school, like after Hopkins, and become a pastor. Like I was seriously considering that. But then I realized quickly afterwards that, wait, if I'm going to still go and stay in Hopkins, I should at least try to get an MD and finish this year, finish my last 3 years strong, and see what happens from there. Um, in regards to, you said thoughts about, oh yeah, the
The
uniqueness.
like that's about the current approach to medicine and like your like unique approach and the current approach and kind of like the juxtaposition of those ideas.
Yeah, that's such a good question because I, my intention wasn't really to be a doctor until like December of sophomore year. So like these like startups,
Yep.
like I was thinking in the back of my head, but like if you asked me in November, like what do you think I'm going to be in 10 years? I would have said like seminary school or theologian or something like that. But then it was at December where like I think something like clicked. And up until December, I already had MSP running. MSP wasn't 120, but it was close to like 90. So it was huge. It basically
Yeah.
became the biggest Christian org, or in a sense, religious org at Hopkins overnight, like in a span of 3 months. And my Bible study called Chai, for Asian Americans also grew overnight. So by the time November hit, I was leading probably the two biggest Christian orgs or faith orgs or religion orgs at Hopkins at that time. So when the idea of medicine came up and the possibility of that like coming up on December, I already had these two entering in. So, and at that point, I was too deep into it. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna go with it. And hopefully they recognize that this is my passion. This is like I want to have like good dialogue and stuff like that. It's funny, like because when you think of science, you don't really think of religion. People tend to view them as
Yep.
mutually exclusive, like totally independent from each other. The problem is though, a lot of people, I don't know exact numbers. I can research this later, but a lot of people are religious, and certain times there's people because people are religious that can play a factor into the way they choose how to live out their medicine lives. So, for example,
That is true.
certain procedures people may not take because of, for example, their dietary restrictions, or certain
Yep.
people are not organ donors because they believe that will, in a sense, mess with their afterlife. So the problem with treating religion and medicine as mutually exclusive, the problem with that is that religion is not mutually exclusive with a lot of people in terms of their daily lives. Some people view religion, regardless if you're Christian, Buddhist, agnostic, I guess you're
Yeah.
not agnostic, not atheist, but like Hindu, like Muslim, like
Yeah.
you really value your religion a lot. And some people, for them, their religion is everything to them. So if you come into a medical field and if you come to hospital and let's say like you're having a life, you needed a life-saving treatment, but it goes against something your religion goes. No amount of scientific terminology, no amount of scientific like points are going to sway that person. So the truth is that religion is a very integral part of people. And because it is an integral part of people's lives, when they do get exposed or when they enter into a medical space, then religion has to be a factor that is considered. And how then can we have respectful dialogue? How then can we have constructive feedback? And the truth is, most pre-meds, in my opinion, have no experience with that whatsoever. Um,
Yeah.
you, even in like TV shows, you can see like, for example, like I think certain families who are against like life-saving treatment because it goes against their religion. And then you see the doctor like just screaming at them, like, how could you not understand this?
Yeah.
And and you can even see this in Hopkins too. Like even though there seems to be some like faith movement in Hopkins, but I would say, especially for institutions that have somewhat of a strong STEM program, um, the idea of religion is not something that you immediately think of when you think of medicine. For me, I do. If I think about medicine, I think of religion like immediately. But for a lot of people, they do not. Which means that yes, I it's something that I recognized like I think not in December, but a little month after. I was like, wait, like since I'm already deep into this, let's just make this a central part of my application and like
Mm.
make this a thing that I'm really going to like jump on a stepping stone into my career too. Because going back to like I guess the purpose of life and like the meaning of life, I'm also a strong believer in that you shouldn't spend your life doing something that you do not like. I don't There's a difference between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation.
Yep.
Extrinsic like money or like fame or success, but what is the intrinsic motivation for why you want to do this? What is intrinsic motivation for why you want to wake up in the morning? And if we base all of our motivation on extrinsic, the problem with that is extrinsic tends to be much more fleeting and short lived than the intrinsic. And when you are going through hard times, is it the extrinsic, that motivation that's going to pull you out, or is it the intrinsic? And
Mm.
for me, at least, I'm really operating a lot on intrinsic. I do think that even though my application probably in the future will be very special and unique, in that I think with my resume, you could probably apply to a seminary school. Like I think I have a very strong resume for a seminary school, but then the problem is I'm applying to be a doctor. So with that, I'm gonna have to like figure out how to like balance more of, I guess not. I think I have a lot of the seminary school stuff down, but how
Yeah.
can I continuously adding onto the clinical experience, the pre med actual like characteristics of my application? And it is very unique. It is very unique, but it's also a risk. Once again, because it's something that you don't normally see. Most people do pre med clubs, or most people do like biotech clubs or like clinical clubs
Yep.
when they're in college, especially for many pre meds here at Hopkins. But for someone to be doing first creating an entirely different initiative, but also leading a Bible study weekly. Like these are very two different polarizing things. So that's something that I'm definitely like still trying to like figure out how I can like relay that good. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's it's really cool. I think that ultimately it comes down to this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I'm going to stick with. So, and each person,
Yeah.
people find passion in very different things. So I think that whatever you find passion in, you should work on it. And frankly, the sky's the dream. So I'm very what do you call? I'm very encouraged by this year, and that's the path that I'm going to go onto moving forward.
But like, don't sell yourself short, Brandon. I mean, like, you're like like major in molecular and cellular bio, and you have two very distinct and diverse research experiences too. Like, yeah, like off your resume, like PCR, gel electrophoresis, Western blotting, um, like dude, like you have the skills in that regard too. So like I feel like you're a very well-rounded candidate, and I think that that experience that you describe is so unique, and that is something for I guess anyone who's watching this to consider too. It's like not everything on your resume or what you talk about in an application to any industry has to be purely about the industry. There's so many intangibles, just as Brandon so eloquently explained. It's like r religion and medicine do connect. Like there's a clear connection there. And I think that your clear passion to the issue will like shine through. So I am very, very, very excited to see what you will accomplish in the future, whether that's med school or like if something else changes and like you go down like another route to that like to a PhD. But I am so excited to see what happens, Brandon.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we are nearing the end of the time of your amazing episode on Krishnan College. Do you have one last closing thought for our listeners today?
So the majority of listeners is high school, right? Oh,
Yeah, like it's mostly high school, but like it's anybody that's interested in the college application process or
oh, cool.
yeah.
Okay, so then I guess I'll try to like answer in a way that I wish my younger self heard. Okay, so going back to I guess like college application stuff, I do think there's a very big importance on doing things that you really care about. And frankly, in my opinion at least, if you really care about something and you're willing to spend the time in it, that will beat out everything that is doing it from a begrudging like attitude or like, oh, I'm doing this just for the resume. I think
Yeah.
that people tend to be much more emotionally perceptive than we think, even when it comes to writing. So obviously, like interviews don't matter as much in college application, but the writing matters a lot. And if you write about something that you're truly passionate about, the words will speak for themselves. I truly believe the words will speak for themselves. And I do also believe that a lot of people, they have every person is unique, not even just like biomolecular or biochemically, but just in their like innate like passions, their desires, their inclinations to certain fields or areas in the world. And of course, the big problem is finding what that is. But once you do find that, and I do think a significant amount of effort should be placed in finding that. I think that's arguably one of the best things you could do when you're especially young. But the benefit of actually finding that then would be if a person tends to be good at something, they will find that practicing, they will find that spending time on it becomes so much easier. If you have a clear goal, if you have a desire to be better at something that you actually like doing, the reason why this is so powerful is then your struggles become you sharpening yourself. Your setbacks become opportunities for you to step forward and learn other things. And even like your rejections to like perhaps certain jobs that are related to your field of interest become other ways that you can branch out and learn new things in regards to your field and become better at it. There's definitely a strong correlation in someone being good at something and someone wanting to do something. If you want to do something, the hours should fly by, the minutes should fly by. But if you're doing it begrudgingly, if you're doing it with a low attitude, that is not very constructive, right? Because especially if you carry that over to college, in my opinion at least, there's a difference between living a fulfilled life or living a, I guess, living a good life in the sense that if someone is truly like making a lot of money and let's say being a doctor, but if they don't like their life, like what even is the point of that? And
Mm.
if you're in high school, you have so much opportunity. I will say though, there are higher stakes in college. Once you go into college, there's
Yep.
definitely more higher stakes in high school. But at least for high school, that should be your opportunity to really branch out and like see what areas or what fields do you really like doing. And frankly, the first step to doing that is just limiting social media usage. I think social media usage is probably the biggest hindrance to a lot of people, including me. I think
Yeah,
when I'm
including
really
me.
in my yes, with everyone right now, the social media plague is something that is super important and should be contained. And even for me, I find it hard to like, especially during lock-in seasons, you have to be very intentional with just putting it down, deleting everything. And as a high schooler, especially since it's a golden opportunity for you to really branch out and see different fields, um, if if you just cut your social media usage in half and spend the other half just like researching other ways that you can grow and learn what you really like and what you love and what you want to dedicate perhaps your life to, who knows? And just spending that time, extra time searching for it, I really do think that that would provide un unparalleled results and unparalleled ways that you can learn more about yourself too. And frankly, life is a journey of self reflection too. So I think that in high school, especially when you're starting out and just learning, getting to know more about yourself, it's a great opportunity that perhaps social media has taken it away for a lot of people. But if you're watching Krishnan podcast, you're probably on a good step and you're in a good path already. So that is my final notes to the viewers.
All right. Well, today we heard from researcher, lab assistant, founder, tutor, volunteer, and leader, Brandon O, on one of the most intellectually curious and deep conversations that we've had so far on Krishnan College. Brandon, thank you so much for your time and like you know that I love talking to you all the time.
Yes, of course. Thank you
So
so much,
thank you for taking
Akshay.
time out of your very, very busy schedule to
It was a
have this
pleasure.
conversation.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, but make sure that you take your time to chill out too and get some sleep in the middle of all of
Yes,
this.
of course. Of
All
course, of
right.
course.
Goodbye, everyone.